Hey, pubbers, what's going on? Welcome to the office hours. Let's get to the office, shall we? There we go. I broke everything. Hold on. In here. I'm just in space right now, guys. I'm just in space. Go. There we go. Fixed it. Welcome everybody, welcome. Pull this up. Wild Volus, Jimmy Grant, Miner, Anadiah, Motoman, Alanon, let's see who else we got. Sandworm, or Sandman, not Sandworm. Psycho Warrior, how you guys going? Gosh, I want to update for Star Citizens. Microsoft, did someone ask for an update? Yeah. Yeah. I updated. I updated things and it broke everything. So, I'm a happy boy. Welcome everybody again. Hey Sanguine, doing good. As much as really up. Wild Volus and Taco Daco, links for the retweets and the favorites, guys. I'd love you guys get a chance to. So this is going to be a little bit more update than lore discussion right now, but I'd love to hear you guys' input. Oh, that's really loud, though. Jesus Christ. There you go. So, the plan right now is to do some work on Jumptown. So this week is going to be my week to try to bear down on Jumptown to get it done. I don't have all the audio still, and I'm still working out a lot of the visuals. But that's not the hard part. The hard part for me right now is getting the... getting sound effects, because a lot of the stories that have been told, I want to have visuals and I want to have sound effects behind them, because otherwise they're kind of lame. The cinematography is not going to be nearly as good as the first episode, but that's because it's actual pictures of the events and stuff like that, rather than just B-roll. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for that them biddies there, Spirian. Aside from Oratani, is there just a disaster? Is there a disaster, or is that just par for the Titanic? What? What? I'm confused by that. Oh, you're asking for a history question. Okay, I was sort of like, I don't know. There have been a couple of like, in terms of loss of life, probably. Yeah, of course I know the Titanic. I didn't know what you were talking about, because Oratani, I thought you misspelled Oratani, which is an actual name of a syndicate in Star Citizen that I've been looking up at. There's been a couple of disasters. Mall collapses have been a big one. There's a couple of really big mall collapses that have happened where people were inside when the malls collapsed. I mean, the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake was pretty bad. If you're talking about ships, I don't have a lot of information on that. I know there have been a couple of cruise ships that have sunk, but not nearly with the same loss of life as that. That's for sure. The reason why the Titanic was so bad was, I mean, think about it, some of the man-made things, like pretty much all of World War II had several Titanics happening daily sometimes in terms of loss of life. The Titanic was so bad because it was done in peacetime, because it was mostly a wealthy ship. You know, it was the kind of like the creme de la creme. They didn't have any proper safety procedures on it. There was like a bunch of things that went wrong for the Titanic. That probably wouldn't have done so bad if they had, you know, actually if they had actually you know, worked on it properly. Oh, you mean in Star Citizen? Oh, the Artemis project was pretty bad. What would be the Star Citizen Titanic? There's not a lot of information on that other than the collapse of that wormhole, which I think is what you're referencing. It's really hard because the Titanic is a very specific thing that happened in a very specific moment for a very specific reason. And the closest things I can think of are like the Artemis project, but they weren't passengers. They were explorers, and they disappeared. They didn't die. There's been a couple of quantum jump experiments that are designed to create faster than light travel that have failed explosively, but I don't think any of them had people on board because they were test ships. So. Yeah, probably the closest thing would be the collapse of the Martian atmosphere during the Mars project. That's probably the closest thing to Titanic in terms of like everyone said slow the fuck down, and they didn't do it, and then it turns out they were using an AI, and it failed them. So it's one of the reasons why the Mars project failed, at least first Mars project. They're using an AI to speed up their development. There's something that happened in Tokyo. I think it was the self-driving cars thing that was probably as bad. It killed hundreds of people when they activated an AI to control all the cars in Tokyo and went on a death spree. So. About the Retribution. Retribution. That sounds familiar. Oh, the supercarrier. Is it known as the Retribution? I thought it was called something else. Yeah, it's Retribution. I'm just dumb. So we know that it was built in MacArthur, the skydocks of MacArthur. We know that it was a experimental ship before it was built. It was built, and it's built specifically to kill king ships. A lot of people theorize that the big center of the ship, the open center, is actually a railgun, but there is no confirmation that that's a railgun. We do know that the ship itself carries like essentially dozens of Bengal class carrier railguns, the clusters that they have, the railgun clusters. So in theory, it could fire like the equivalent of like 12 or 13 Bengals worth of firepower. It also likely is going to have a fighter deck. It's called a dreadnought, but it's kind of like a super carrier, like a mega super carrier. It's the essentially UEE King ship is what it is. Hey, comedian, I'm an old man and I have to go to bed, but I love you, Paul. Thank you, comedian. Thanks for hanging out, man. Thanks for subscribing for Twitch Prime as well. shoots M50s? You mean shoots Bengals? We don't know if that main center is a railgun. There has been no documented evidence that it is a railgun, unless someone has found evidence otherwise. It's likely going to be in Squadron 42, and it's likely going to blow up. I don't think you'll see it in Star Citizen. Alanon, thank you so much for that that subscription as well for 30 months. Gosh, I went up. Oh, yeah. It's super powerful, yeah. The thing is that the UEE Navy is very hesitant to throw it into the front lines. It's been in one battle, but it mostly did. It was mostly just there to take care of a kingship if it showed up, and they didn't. So the UEE still won because they're fucking ruthless. They used the Nautiluses to cover the retreat. So essentially, they knew which direction the Vanduuls were going to come in. So they waited for the Vanduul to attack, then mined the entrance to mined their escape, and ruined the attacking force, nearly decimating it as it was trying to escape. And the Retribution was kind of hanging back. Apparently, it did get a little bit involved in the conflict, but it was mostly just there to support in case a kingship showed up. Essentially, the Retribution's there to fight a kingship. They're waiting to use it to take on a kingship. I don't even know if there's a confirmed kill of a kingship. I think there's one confirmed kill of a kingship by Squadron 42 that was attempting to attack Earth. But that may have also just been a fictionalized account. It's hard to tell sometimes the difference between fictionalized accounts and real accounts in lore. Exodemic. Oh, no. There's a confirmed capture. That was the X-12 or something like that. But that ship was that ship wasn't destroyed. It was captured because it was already disabled by the time the UE showed up. They didn't disable it. I think there has been one confirmed kill of a kingship at the very least. The problem is that usually when the kingships show up, they don't show up as the vanguard of a fleet. They show up after the fleet has already been there, pounding away at the UEE forces or human forces, the local forces. And then once everything's weakened, the kingship shows up, and the other ships just don't have the firepower to take it down because they've wasted all their big guns on the other big ships in there. It was an accident. I believe it was a radiation leak that killed. It was that or some sort of it was basically like a valve got stuck loose and killed everything. And those few Vanduul that did survive were able to be wiped out pretty easily by the Marines who boarded it. But usually there's a device that just when triggered kills. Blows up ships rather than letting them captured. Vanduul ships rather than get captured. It's one of those situations where it didn't work. I was watching a bunch of videos about other planets, exoplanets, terraforming, etc., and I've got me wondering, what's the word for pandemic that spreads to multiple planets? Exodemic? Oh, that's what it is. I like the kappa. It would probably be a stellar demic. They probably just still use pan, because pan means all. So. Hey, Chris, how you doing, buddy? We're still giving away the Prowler. Today is literally the last day you can get it. You probably only have like 4 hours left, less than 4 hours left to get in on the Prowler giveaway. Exclamation point Prowler to do that one. Thank you, CIG, for that. We're still giving away the Cutlass Blue all this month, too, so. That's your songs, but. Playlist is just Doesn't stay as a playlist. Thick Asari Horseman. Thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub, man. I mean, a new word for pandemic when it's confined to one planet after we've colonized other worlds. Nubsly asking the hard questions. Hey, CS, how you doing, buddy? CCS. Do you think we will be able to capture the Vanduul spear weapon in view? Oh yeah, for sure. You can probably buy them. You'll probably find a place you could buy them, like off the Banu or whatever. I don't think they're very effective. I don't think that the Banu spear weapons are designed specifically to be good. The Vanduul, I don't think I said Banu, but the Vanduul's weapons and armor is generally not the best. They're kind of backwards compared to humanity. What makes them super dangerous is they are really tough. Their weapons are intentionally dual purpose, but they only have one. They only have one weapon, really. They might have some side weapons, but knives and daggers and that kind of thing. So human weapons will be a lot more effective because of distance and because of damage penetration and such. Most Vanduul weapons are even just designed as like a very basic kind of requirements. Vanduul ships are destroyed instead of captured. How do we not have? How do we have all the scythes actual captured and convert Vanduul ships? Not the replica and blade and glaive are. How do we have all the scythes actual captured and converted Vanduul ships, not the replica? Because of the X-12. The X-12 had a full hangar bay full of scythes. Those are the captured scythes. The spear shoots though, right? Yeah, it does. Is this true? I figured their weapons would be pretty potent. Their weapons are pretty potent, but you got to get up really fucking close to them. Most of the Vanduul weapons, like the Vanduul technology and Vanduul like style of fighting, is up close and brutal. The spear weapon being projectile is probably more just because of the necessity of requiring projectile weapons than the necessity than as a effective projectile weapon. As long as it works. The Vanduul are very pragmatic in their weaponry. Their blades are very pragmatic. They're like think about their ships. The 3 ships that we have right now, they focus mostly on melee combat in space and the weapons. Like the glaive is just 2 giant size 4 cannons and then 2 size 1s. So that's the kind of put bigger guns on it, and then if you have more space, you can put the smaller guns on it. But mostly hit them with your fucking spear. A Vanduul is probably more likely to charge you with their spear to try to stab you with it than they are to use it as a projectile weapon. But I'm sure that'll depend on the Vanduul. I'm sure, for instance, younger Vanduul may charge, whereas older Vanduul may stay back and fight because they're more experienced, and I know that charging a machine gun is stupid. Exactly. There's no finesse in their attacks. They're brutal. Everything is brutality. The other thing that they seem to value is speed and maneuverability, but in more of the sense of being able to do raids rather than full-on invasions. A good way of looking at the Vanduul is their fighting strategy seems to be very similar to the Vikings, to the Norse strategy in the medieval era, where the idea is you didn't see a ton of Norse archers. They existed, but the most of the Norse would use things like javelins, and they'd focus on heavy brute weapons, axes, maces, heavy swords. And the idea was to overwhelm the enemy, but be able to be light and fast enough that you can get in, overwhelm your enemy, take what you need, and run away. That's the kind of tactics they use. When they show up in big numbers, they're hugely dangerous. In fact, it seems like they're taking direct inspiration from the Vikings, because the more experienced a Vanduul warrior is, the less armor they wear. Seeming very similar to the berserkers of the most feared warriors of the Vikings, do a lot of drugs and then start swinging heavy axes at people. Kind of same similar thing. Yeah, I feel like the Star Citizen has broken down the Klingon into two forms of the Klingon: the honor-bound Klingon and the bloodlust Klingon. So the honor-bound Klingon, the Klingons that you'd see in like DS9 and stuff like that, and maybe some of the TOS movies, where they fight, but they fight with honor. The Worf style, like, you have no honor. That's more of the Tavaran, where they're like rigorous to almost dogmatic to their belief system. And then the bloodthirsty Klingons, the Klingons that are there only to cause damage, to get power, and to kill things because they like to die. They like to kill things. That is very much much more of the Vanduul when it comes to that kind of stuff. Hey, Braboom, thanks so much for that Twitch Prime sub, man. All these Twitch Prime subs, thank you guys. Up Close and Personal is the title of my marriage memoir. Very skilled in the art of war. Strangely, humans are very skilled in the art of war. Like, humanity in Star Citizen is probably one of the more belligerent species. The Xi'an don't really fight wars unless they have to. The Banu never fight wars. The three most belligerent species in the galaxy is humanity, Tavaran, and the Vanduul. Probably the Cathok too, but the humans are a lot more belligerent than the Tavaran. The Tavaran have a very specific code of when they fight and when they don't. Whereas the Vanduul just fight because they want to. Is there anything in the lore describing the size of Vanduul infantry divisions? Not really. They seem to not fight in groups. The Vanduul seem to fight as individuals. So rather than being soldiers, they're more like warriors. Think of the difference between like a samurai and versus a Mongolian spearman. The Mongolian spearman is going to work with the other spearmen to form a line and to attack, whereas a samurai during that same era would be going for one-on-one combat and singling out an opponent and attacking them, but not in a group. You'd have group tactics in the sense of everyone moves this direction, but not in terms of like a phalanx, like a Greek-style phalanx wouldn't exist for the Japanese. And that's the kind of the differences. The Vanduul are warriors, humans are soldiers. And the Tavaran are soldiers. They're not warriors. They kind of do a little bit of both, but mostly they focus on the unit cohesion. Really Tavaran right now in their code, also their planet. I can't decide if the planet has forest or not. Sounds like it's crazy rock formations. Yeah, most of the Tavaran live in the mountains and the hills. They seem to live mostly in the mountains. Like they call them the sky cities or something like that. The cloud cities. The cloud temples, I think is what it's called. But humans actually live in the valleys where they harvest water from the oceans. Thank you, Fall. It is real. It's also white, not blonde. I don't know why people freak for that. What do people pronounce it at? Phalanx? Phalanx? Phalanx is probably phalanx. Phalanx is probably how they pronounce it. I've heard that before. Phalanx. I'm probably not pronouncing it right according to the Greek. My wife, Camilla, she's the one who actually knows ancient Greek. In fact, let me go yell at her really quickly. Be right back. Pam has to look it up, but she's looking up. She thinks it's phalanx as well. Of course I did. Tavarin, bird samurai Klingons with a touch of Zuko. Yeah. What do you think it's possible the outcomes of the Vanduul War? Considering the Vanduul and the Banu are trading relations, do you ever think humans and Vanduul will get along to some degree? Or just part of some... So I think what'll likely happen is... we're actually going to be doing an info runners on this about the inspirations behind Star Citizen's universe in the Roman Empire. And so... with the Roman Empire being the basis, the absolute bare minimum basis of the universe, the Vanduul are the representations of the Vandals and the Goths, who were, and the Visigoths and such, the Germanic steppe people and the steppe peoples who were forced into the Roman Empire. Now, those peoples eventually took over the Roman Empire in the West, but I don't think that's going to happen in the Star Citizen universe. I have a feeling that they may end up being like the Tavarin, and that they're going to be slowly absorbed into the UEE by accident. Because, and possibly even because the thing that's pushing them out, which is what was the case in ancient Rome, many people think it's the Kurthok, will be a greater threat to all of them than just them. So then Vanduul and the humans will have to fight together against the Kurthok in order to beat them, which would be, a nightmare scenario for the Xi'an. They're absolutely scared of the Kurthok. If the Kurthok showed up on their other borders, on the other side of their borders, they would lose their goddamn minds. I've done a video on the various anti-UEE, anti-corrupt corporation groups that are on Delamar. There's only one real group, which is the People's Republic, but the People's Alliance, the People's Alliance of Levski, which we have a little bit of information on, but we don't have a ton of it. We have some audio files we can pull from it, but they're mostly just anti-government hippies. I also do believe that war is just part of who the Vanduul are, but I also believe that the Vanduul will probably change if you break enough of if the humanity breaks enough of their clans, then the Vanduul won't bother. So Anthony Tanaka was not from Delamar. Anthony Tanaka was from a different planet. I don't remember which one. I'd have to look it up real quickly. But the situation of Anthony Tanaka was something that was done during the Mezzer era that was popularized. That was one of the reasons why Mezzer fell. The reason why they have a statue of Anthony Tanaka is because they're anti-government rebels, and that statue is a representation of why they hate the UEE, because they kill children after forcing them to work 48-hour shifts without sleep. So... you just got out of quarantine. I'm going to celebrate by beating COVID by getting this game. Nice, Fall. Congratulations. It's $45. Don't worry. Don't feel like you have to buy anything more than that. And there's going to be a free flight coming up, so you may not even have to buy it first before you try it out. Yeah, that sounds about right. Newcastle. Yeah, thank you. Speaking of Levski, why is Delamar a Levski put in the PU that isn't if that isn't its location, because they wanted to put another location in the map. Originally, Levski and Delamar was going to be the first expansion of what they called the social module. They did ArtCorp first, and then they were going to do that. And the idea was to develop tools and palettes for the various landing locations. So, for instance, Levski is the basis for all industrial landing zones. If you notice, there's a lot of similarities between Levski and Grimhex, a lot of similarities between Grimhex and Levski and Hurston and Lorville, because they all share similar palettes, similar props and such. And likely all the mining facilities we can see will have that. So when they were going to do things like landing zones, and they didn't have a landing zone on any of the planets yet, they added in Levski as a landing zone that people could use to test out landing tech. Now, as they started adding Hurston and Lorville, then ArtCorp, and now New Babbage and Microtech, there's not much of a need to test it as it was. So they're actually going to be removing it eventually here, but it was basically for testing purposes. I wonder what the Kuthak look like. Sound like there's nothing really known about them. Almost nothing. Because, oh, you're talking about E-phalanx. Yeah, for me, Tag refers to electronic phalanx as I worked on electronic warfare and defense. Yeah, it makes sense. New Capsule is the capital of Borea? Is it? That Borea was the city. Maybe that makes sense. Borea is the city, is the planet, and Newcastle's the city. Let's look it up. Which is it's where Drake Interplanetary is. I'll look it up. That makes sense, though. Isn't Grimhex supposed to be the upsize and put where Levski is later, or did I misunderstand Grimhex rework? That may be the case, but I think the Grimhex rework is actually being more like it's being updated for larger sizes, though it could end up in the Air and Halo. That would make sense. It would make more sense than having a ring around Yella, to be honest, because Yella is too small to have a ring. Moons don't have rings. But I'm going to get a Pisces expedition. I've been doing research. Nice, Fall. That's good. Why are they taking so long on old ships? Which old ships, Commander? Cobra Commander, that's the question. What are you talking? Which one are you referring to? And I can explain, because there's a lot of very specific reasons. Like, for instance, the Endeavor is not going to come out until probably after the game releases, just because the Endeavor it involves so many different aspects of the game, and it's so huge, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Versus something like the Redeemer, which needs to get completely reworked from the ground up, because its design and style doesn't fit with Aegis, nor does it really fit with the current flight model. So it would take a lot of work to make it work properly. So. All the Connies aren't going to get reworked, man. There's no plans for reworking the Connies. CIG has not said anything, as far as I know, that they're going to rework the Connies. The Connies are just going to get released, and that's it. The whole series requires a brand new physics system for being able to have different parts of the ship, which is part of the whole ship, but it's also a separate ship. It's the same reason why the Mustang and the 300 series can't hold cargo. The same reason why you can't use your escape pods. Same reason why there's not docking available. It's all the same thing. I think it's inevitable too, but they've got other things they have to work on that are either more pressing or more relevant. The Connies are out. The Connies, like, this is going to sound harsh, but if you're a person who really wanted the Connies to work and you bought the game because you really like the Connies, find another ship that you like, because they're not going to get reworked. Just buy a Corsair when it comes out or something. Find something that does what you want it to do. because you're just waiting for heartache if you're waiting for it to get reworked to become the ship you want it. Cat, yeah, cat's better. Like, I'd have a freelancer max over a Connie Taurus any day, even if the Taurus holds more cargo, just because I like the ship. Corsair is better than the Connie. Speaking, why are they taking so long on making old ships? Why does it take so long for the X1 hover bike? I have no fucking idea. That is one of those things that makes no sense to me. Why does it take them forever to do a hover bike when they already have done 2? Like, they've already done this before. Why is it taking so long for them to do it again? The only explanation I can think of is that the X1 has been put on the back burner because they don't like how hover works in game right now, and they want to rework hover before they start adding more hover vehicles. The Star Runner is coming out, though. The Star Runner is going to be coming out or at least it's planned to come out in a couple months. So, well, not a couple months, more like 7, but October. When will more skins come? Probably when they introduce the skin system. They haven't. It seems like the bugs that they have where the ships are showing up in different colors is the skin system. They just haven't hooked up the skin system for whatever reason. Probably because it's not a huge factor for their testing right now. So. I want a bike so bad. Yeah, bike's really cool. Connies aren't bad. It just takes getting used to, but they're okay. Connies are great at what they're good at, what they're designed to do. And a lot of people try to use them for what they're not. It's called a gunship, but it's really more like a support ship in that kind of sense. A Connie is good to fly in a straight direction in 360 and fire. It's not a dogfighter by any means, and its shields are weak. It has weird shields that are not going to get reworked anytime soon. The design is off and odd. The main advantage it has 4 beds and has a lot of storage space, and it has a snub fighter, which I guess is good. But what's a Connie? Okay, you're new, Fall, so it's okay. Don't worry about it. A Connie is a constellation, the RSI constellation. There are 4 variants, I think. The Andromeda, which is the base variant, the Aquila, which is the exploration variant, the Phoenix, which is the luxury variant, and the Taurus, which is the cargo variant. They all have different configurations, but they're basically like a 2 to 4 person ship. They're pretty big. They're the ones that has like little elevators that go up and down, that has like the big undercarriage. They're not as big as a Carrack, but they're bigger than a Cutlass. That's the difference between them. They have to finish. I think they have to finish those the physics rework, because right now the whole like docking and that kind of thing needs to get redone, because like people forget that the Caterpillar actually has a separate ship attached to it, which functions as its command center. That is actually a separate ship that has its own jump drive and quantum drive. And that little ship is able to detach and then fly away and come back and reattach. And I think that also has to do with the modules, because you're going to have to be able to swap them in and swap them out, which requires its own bespoke customization scheme. So that's also going to take a little while. There's an image on the forums of a Reclaimer in R&R colors with logos. I don't doubt it. Like, they have a lot of, like, there's at least 3 different types of pirate skins that exist. The red pirate skin, the blue and red pirate skin, and the yellow pirate skins. The Nova Riders, the Ninetails, and the, I think they're supposed to be the Dusters. The red's supposed to be the Dusters. I think they were Ninetails for a while, but it might make sense that they're the Dusters, which are the 3 major gangs of Stanton. Well, the Low Riders, but they're really the Nova Riders. Nova Riders, they're a type of gang that was popularized in lore. This is the cool thing. This is not just lore. This is pirate lore. So it's like third-hand accounts of who they were. The Nova Riders are the first space pirates ever in Star Citizen history. Back in the time when only corporations controlled ships, when it was you had to be mega rich, or you had to have a, or you had to be part of a corporation or a government to be able to fly these ships. The best way you could rob like a transport was by waiting for it to arrive at a station, masked up with guns. And then they basically rob them at the port, which is dangerous because, you know, if there are security forces there, you're screwed. The Nova Riders were the first ever gang to think about meeting a ship halfway between its destination. So they stole a ship and then used that ship to pirate another ship mid-flight. The first ever real space pirates. And ever since that happened, the Nova Rider name has been passed down from gang to gang. So different gangs will take up the title of Nova Rider, especially when, you know, they are really, really good. I wouldn't be surprised if the term Nova Rider is the term for someone who is a really good pirate. Oh, that person's a Nova Rider. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Arena Commander about 20 years ago, not 20 years ago, about like 10, 15 years ago, took the name for all the pirates in Pirate Swarm, in-game, in lore. So a bunch of kids who grew up with Arena Commander who want to be pirates now, or who want to be outlaws, are starting to call themselves Nova Riders. So where it used to be a mark of distinction, it's now become a generic catch-all term for pirate. And so there are a group of Nova Riders who, or at some point related to the Nova Riders, who have changed the name to the Low Riders. And they're the ones who used to occupy Korea. They're the ones with the yellow armor, which is the Nova Riders color. So I'm doing that brings up another point. I'm doing a lore piece on the gangs of Stanton, the gangs and the syndicates. So that's going to be fun. I'm also doing a review on the major players, the 4 major species in the Star Citizen universe: humanity, and they're kind of the 3 political factions of the humanity, the Xi'an, the Banu, and the Vanduul. I'm not talking about the Kurthok or the Tavaran, because the Tavaran really aren't that important for a basic noob guide on Star Citizen factions, because they're more part of the UEE than they are their own faction. They're kind of a little bit of both, but you should treat them more like an outlaw faction or a political faction inside the UEE. And I'm going to do a separate video specifically on who the Tavaran are and their place in the UEE today, like kind of what's going on, kind of like a guide to the Tavaran. And then that's a separate video as well that I'm making. And I'm also doing a video on 5 battles, which I know in lore, which I'd love to see in Theaters of War. Something they added to Theaters of War. I'm also probably going to do a lore video specifically on the Battle of Theaters of War, the one that we know about. Pull out some lore bits about it, talk about the battle for Nexus, and kind of explain the context of that. And then, so I got a lot of ideas. I want to do more videos like that. So the Tavaran are important. They are important, but they're more important to the story of the UEE than they are their own story. The Tavaran are a minority group, and they are very much not a political powerhouse in the universe. It's the, you know, they're not really that important for a new player to come in and understand. Know that they exist, but, you know, that's more of a, hey, do you want to know, would you like to learn more kind of situation. Tavaran lives matter. Why is this Mercury Star Runner the best looking ship? Because it's won several endurance races every year, or like 2 years in a row. Captain Stable question. Okay, I have to change that, but I don't know why that is. Hey, we got 69 viewers right now. Nice. Nice. On Twitch, at least. On YouTube, we've got 28, which is not bad. Ah, Levski, one of the two places where the elevators are elevators. Wow, that used to be. It used to be death traps. The Levski elevators. Community. There it is. Turn that off. Turn on anything. With all the traditional ship sales and then the land claim sales, do you think we might see CIG selling premium penthouse apartments in the future at some major landing zone? Only if they need money. CIG has been making record amounts of money for the last 6 months. 7 months, actually. Since November of 2019, every month has been record-breaking. Even last month, in the middle of the freaking pandemic, they still made more money than they've ever made in April. It's insanity. So I think they might do it, but I think that would probably be something that they would do when they're more available in game. Levski was where I was born, forever a special place for me. Yeah, Roy. See, in lore, at least, in my personal lore for my character, he's from Magnus, from Berea. Hey, Joe, what's up? Hey, Defango, how you doing, buddy? Levski citizen lives matter. I lived through the Levski refugee crisis. Messer missed a really great opportunity to great campaign opportunity to suggest giant space wall and force the Zavaran to pay for it. And they kicked out the Zavaran. The Zavaran were removed from their home world after the Demezzers invaded. Especially after the Second Tavaran War, it was illegal to be Tavaran in the UEE. So, you think we'll see any of the reworks of the Freelancer at all? Visibility, the visibility argument again? No, Keckmeyer. I don't think we will. It's fine. If you don't like it, then get a Cutlass kind of thing. Do any of the gangs in Stanton settle their disputes with songs or even better dance-offs? No, but I'm going to coin a new term in the video that I'm doing with the gangs. That Star Citizen pirates, outlaws groups in Star Citizen are really separated into two kind of people: the syndicates and the gangs. And crews, you will hear something called like the crew, like the Horizon crew. That's more of a gang. And the gangs of Star Citizen don't feel like street gangs today, or even historical street gangs. I'm going to coin the term pyropunk, or pirate punk, something like that. I still have to come up with a good name for it, but kind of like the cyberpunk movement. And the idea that in cyberpunk universes, it's being punk is getting like yourself augmented and doing crazy shit, to try to change the world, to try to change society. That's what they are. The gangs really aren't members of they're members of an outlaw game because they like chaos and destruction. But in many ways, their destruction and chaos is a political message. It's a message that they think that the UEE is too corporate, it's too controlling. And they pirate because they're trying to destroy that structure. Similar to punk rock, they're basically punk rock pirates. Cyber anarchists, pirate punks, probably. Yeah. Magnus is a place we can visit, or have you ever seen your home? Not IRL, like not in game, just in lore. It will be a place you can visit. It's just not in game yet. What do you think the new concept will be? Any of those 4 thumbnail concepts they highlighted a little while ago? Probably the. So let's be honest, it's gonna be another fighter, if they do it. What do you thought about the Fleet Week? In lore, it's where the UEE recruits just graduated, right? Yeah, it's during that week is when the first year recruits are graduate their from that whole week. I'd like to see more information on it. I'll definitely do a lore piece on it. A pirate born out of Drake HQ. Classic. I'm not a pirate. I'm a businessman. I'm a businessman who, an entrepreneur who seeks new markets that are untapped. That's all I am. Do you think we'll see upcoming Blue Angels flight show 2020? I don't know. There's only one concept ship all the way back in December. Yeah, there was only, I don't even remember what that was. It was the Ares. Buck Punks, maybe. Pyropunk, yeah, probably like that, something like that. They're really cyber anarchists because cyber anarchists, like, not all the gangs are augments. They don't like to augment themselves necessarily, but they all listen to very similar music. Destruct is one of a favorite one. In fact, they use heavy. They call it grunge. I'm thinking it's probably more grunge metal than it is grunge rock. Or something like that, I think is what it is. They use it, in the past, the Nova Riders, of course, are the ones who pioneered this, was to basically turn on all comm frequencies and just blast that music as loud as possible through the comm frequencies to drown out any distress calls, so that when they attack and they turn the music up, essentially it's both a calling card because you know you're about to get hit by pirates, but you also know it's useless. There's no way you're going to be able to call for help. And it's also psychological, because now you have loud rock music blaring in your head while you're trying to concentrate. The Syndicate Sniper. You're like a Ferengi. Listen, I don't have lobes. It's just an industrious citizen looking for a paycheck, yes. They're pretty big. Augments are a pretty big thing in Star Citizen. I don't know how they'll do them in game. I have a feeling that there'll be something that'll be add-ons later. They got to have a pluses and minuses for them. I assume they'll be expensive as well. And CIG seems to want them to make them vulnerable to EMP grenades and such. So, not a Bandit or a Ferengi, kind of. But most, like, for instance, shipjackers, the shipjackers we've seen in concept are all augments, full augments. We'll likely see augments in the military. Probably some of the veterans you'll see will have augmented because of, like, replacements because of damage from the military. You got to remember that the Star Citizen universe is a little weird. Every human born in the Star Citizen universe is perfect. They have no flaws, because they are genetically manipulated to have no flaws. So, to a degree, a human born who's genetically perfect may not need augments as much, because an augment, it may give you more power. Like, you may be able to have super strong, you can, like, break through doors and stuff, but that requires power to function, so you're going to have some sort of fusion battery in you while you're trying, a fusion reactor in you while you're trying to do that, which I can imagine is dangerous. So not everyone needs to break down doors for a living, but even if you do, you could probably just wear a power suit and you'd be fine. And it's a lot less expensive. I don't need a character bartender. I am going to be a bartender in game. I Stardust. Indeed. Yeah, so basically, there's a lot of cool things that are. I'm going to be doing download for videos, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. I got the hair. I do. I got the hair. Suit. Retweet that. Good love. Thank you there, Cupan. Will you 10 bar in my eventual 890 jump if you pay me, Fall? The plan is, for those of you guys who don't know, in Magnus, maybe in Magnus at some point, the plan is to earn a ship in game to turn into a bar, and then turn that bar into an actual space bar. You know, like what people can come in and buy drinks, hang out in the location, and then take that and then pay me for the drinks, obviously, and then go off to whatever they need to do. So I can get money for bartending, giving people beers and such, but in a kind of unique atmosphere, and then turn around and use that as a, and then continue kind of like flying around with the bar, eventually earning 890 out of that. You didn't know we were perfect? Yeah, that's in lore at least. To the point where humans are, people are actively getting reconstructive surgery after they're born to be imperfect, to have asymmetrical faces and stuff like that, because it's kind of like the hipster movement, trying to look ugly, not necessarily ugly, but look less perfect, just slightly imperfect, is a big movement. And some people are having their kids not look perfect, like intentionally getting genetic programming to make their kids look slightly different so that they stand out, because when everyone's perfect, no one is, you know, no one's unique. Player goal is to create player content. Yes, of course, Fall. I also need, as CIG is developing the game, I become more and more to the realization that I need to fucking hire a security company to protect me. It's the only way it's going to happen. Why is it that Fashion Star Citizens is just ripped up shirts? Because that's what they've been able to finish so far. There's a lot of fashion you can find in certain, especially in like Microtech, which isn't ripped up shirts. But there's a lot of stuff that's ripped up shirts. And that's because a lot of humans don't live in perfect home worlds. It's not just Star Trek. You know, it's more like Star Wars in the sense that the core worlds are really wealthy, but places like Magnus, shitholes. Like they really don't have a lot of development going on, and the stuff they do have is usually from pirates and outlaws, because they're the ones who bring money into the system. You know, pyro is not going to be fixed on its own, so as a result, you may have to use that one shirt which was designed to last only a year, may have to last you a lifetime. Hey, Doge. Black and yellow, black and yellow. Sorry. Wednesday BOGO? Maybe. We'll see. Do you think we'll be available to take the Mantis out and turn into an Explorer version eventually? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. It's very specifically designed for what it's designed for. However, if you like the look of the Mantis, I would guarantee you that's the way that the Apollo is going to look. I mean, because it looks like a Star Trek ship. It's got a good size to it. It has a bed you can sleep in, but a little big, a little off of that. Levski's were the salt of the verse and the real characters, yeah. So any lore on everyday drivers, as in family personal vehicles? I did a little bit of a video on that, which is, you know, kind of does everyone in the universe have vehicles? And the answer is yes and no. Auroras and Mustangs tend to be daily drivers, but it really depends on where you live. In the United States, we have a culture of cars, so it makes, to us, people like myself, it's a little bit more difficult to fathom a universe where you don't have personal vehicles you can drive around in. But in the universe of Star Citizen, a lot of places that are developed as landing zones and as cities are built from the ground up with you know, often in hostile conditions. So you don't have, so like public transportation is pretty common because they need to build the trams and the monorails and the hyperloops to be able to efficiently go around without having to go outside. And having to fly a ship from one side of a planet, or one side of a city to another, isn't really efficient. It's expensive. So unless you live on the frontier, you likely don't even own a ship. Very few people actually own ships outside of an Aurora or like a Mustang. A freelancer, for instance, would be an incredible investment. You can think about it in terms of an Aurora costs 400,000 UEC, which is the equivalent of like maybe 40,000 US dollars. So a freelancer costs like 1.6 or 1.8, maybe 2 million UEC. So you're talking about well over $200,000 for a freelancer. Very few people buy a vehicle for over $100,000. Some, you know, it is essentially like a work truck or a house, you know, in terms of cost for some people. So buying a freelancer, you'd have to use it as your, not just your daily driver, but your workspace. It's more like a full-on business. So most of the people will, unless they're working specifically in space, or they have to have a vehicle, a spaceship to go from place to place for their workspace. Maybe they live on Levski, but they work at Everest Harbor. You're usually going to have, those kind of people usually just have like an Aurora. Isn't that every person is a citizen? Not every person is a citizen, no. Citizen is this title that you earn if you do some great service to the Empire, and the best and easiest way to do that is to serve in the military. Well, will they fix the hammerhead? In what way, Cobra? Making the turrets more useful? Probably, but that has to do with combat tweaking. I wonder if they're going to be planning on having moisture evaporator farms like we have, like if you buy some land, make a farm, then trade your own goods. That's sort of in the plans. That's with the Pioneer. But yeah, not every person's a citizen. The best way of doing it is to become go join the military. And if you join the military, it's not a guaranteed citizenship. If you join the military, you have to spend a certain amount of time in the military before you can get out and get your citizenship. There's a lot of work trucks that cost over 100,000. Yeah, but I mean, that's my point there, Sanguine. It's like over $100,000. It's a business, not a daily driver. There's not really the minivan of Star Citizen that doesn't really exist right now. Well, a bottle of water costs 3 UEC for or $1, so 400,000 is closer to 133,000. Yeah, I mean, the prices are all wonky as hell, so I don't think that's the best way of putting it. But we do know that the Auroras and the Mustangs are common ships in the verse. People fly them all the time. Right now, you pay for citizenship. Yeah. I'd love a mining outpost. Inflation in the far future isn't so bad. Well, again, 3 UEC for a bottle of water, which could mean 1 UEC if you do the equivalent, which means that a essentially compact car costs you $133,000. The way I've been looking at it is that each, like, ships are tiered differently than vehicles and all that, or than weapons and personal items, because those specifically have to have a certain kind of range, which will change when they have the dynamic economy. I'd love to see, okay, mining outposts, inflation. Do you think the Pioneer will grow in size? Yeah, probably. That, or it'll change in terms of being more modular so that it can, like, swing out and build other things. I'd love to see, yeah. Same here, Terry. I'd love to see the Pioneer be able to build more than just outposts. I'd love to see it, like, build ranches or farms or larger homes, 2-story houses, that kind of thing. But sure, there's 950 UEC. Yeah, exactly. Should be insane. Starzy, thanks for the follow. Oh, and there was a water drink. I have G Fuel. I have to get some water. Be right back. The Fango TV, thanks for that follow. Really Hunger Mungus. Seems that a really huge mungus. And Jay Calvin, thank you for that 20 months at tier 1. I'm going through some of this stuff. Thank you, Cobra Commander, for that subscription at tier 1. Dragoon, thanks for that 100 biddies. Cobra Commander, thanks for that follow. Oh no, 1 month, not 27 months. Cobra Commander, thank you. Welcome to the club. I'm kind of looking at restream, so I doesn't see all the events. If you guys are subscribing on YouTube and that kind of stuff, thank you for that as well. There's all 36 of you, and there's 75 of you on Twitch. Over 100 people watching total. Awesome. Let me go get some water real quick. I'll be right back. Agua para mí. Hey, Jiru, how you doing, buddy? Pyropunk, no A. Pyropunk, maybe? Pyropunk? Yeah, P-I-R-O. Yes, we're also giving away a Prowler, guys. Today is the last day of the Prowler. It's going to be ending tonight at midnight, my time. So that's like about 2 hours, 20 minutes or so. So, question: why did the Devarans lose the wars? The first war because they, I don't know about the first war. They weren't able to stop the UEE invasion of Idris, which seems to have broke the back of the Devaran forces. And the second war they lost because the Squadron 42, the famous squadron now, they were just a punishment battalion back then, found out a way to get past the Phalanx shields. Essentially, they figured if they could power down amongst some debris at the entrance of a jump point, as the Devaran ships would come in, they essentially would slip past their shields, or the ships wouldn't see that they're there, so you wouldn't have their shields up. The ships would then activate. The second they activated, they were within range of the ships. They targeted their shield generators and destroyed them. And if they were able to damage or destroy as many shield generators as possible, then the Phalanx shield, which would take all of the other shield generators together and combine them, wasn't as effective. And if it wasn't as effective, it wasn't able to do what it's supposed to do. And that the fleet was not able to respond properly, and they had to go one at a time through the jump gate to get to their home planet. So they were out of formation, they were damaged, and it was impossible for them to recover from the attack. And the Second Devaran War is a little different because the whole purpose of the Second Devaran War was that Devaran wanted to capture their home world, which had been taken at the end of the First Devaran War. No, it's not the same war as lore as in Privateer and Wing Commander, but a lot of it is very similar in terms of stories because it's heavily based on some of the ideas behind Wing Commander and Privateer. The Devaran, if this was to be set in the Wing Commander universe, the Devaran would be the Kilrathi in many ways. Yep, that's a good one, Paul. That's a good one. All their eggs in one basket. Haha. Yeah, then there is a water procurement type of machines and water haulers and transport, very important. I have an Endeavor, and I'm going to enjoy loaner ships until they eventually get around to making it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's going to take a while for them to make it. Red Horn, thank you so much for that follow. Right. Put this down. Yep. So, so they're also cat people in the Star Citizen verse? No, they're bird people, not cat people. But they serve the same narrative purpose as the Kilrathi did. As a species that humanity went to war with, the first alien species they went to war with, and they eventually were absorbed into the Empire, kind of thing. Similar to how I believe the Kilrathi were absorbed into the Confederation. Yeah, it's not the Wing Commander universe. The Wing Commander universe is owned by EA, and Chris couldn't get the rights to it, so he made his own unique one. But Chris Roberts is the guy who invented Wing Commander, so he's the one who's making this as well. My guess on current UE Tavaran population, tiny. Probably less than 2 million. Maybe less than 1 million Tavaran. In a universe where there are trillions of humans, where one planet of humans could reach over 1 billion, and there are hundreds of planets in the UEE space, the Tavaran are tiny inside the UEE. Very little. Do I think that the Banu adopting other technology, we might see them Tavaran displays on the bridge of the merchantman? Probably not Tavaran displays, but definitely Tavaran tech, like the Tavaran shield tech inside the Vendor, for example. Do you think we'll, never mind. How many alien races are in the game? Sentient alien races. There's the humans, the Tavaran, the Banu, the Xi'an, and the Vanduul. Those are the 5 main ones. There's also the Krthak, which is a kind of distant species that was an ancient enemy of the Xi'an that humanity has heard about but never met. And the Xi'an are very interested in keeping that the case because they fought a genocidal war against the Xi'an and nearly beat them. They fought each other to a standstill, essentially. In fact, they did beat the Xi'an, but the Xi'an were able to negotiate peace and just said, we're just not going to fuck with you anymore. Is there a type of overall manuscript or book about the Star Citizen universe? There isn't, really, not yet. But if you want a good... Welcome to Galactic Historian. My name is Paul Shelley, your humble host and space partner here at the Astropub, and your professor tonight at Galactic Historian. This is a series of videos and other concept that I covering the lore of space, science fiction, and other universes. I mostly focus on Star Citizen. So Star Citizen is... I do a lot of Star Citizen lore videos. So if you're interested in the lore of Star Citizen, that brings me to the other topic, which I'll put in the chat for you guys to watch. If you're new to Star Citizen lore and you're interested in finding out more, there is a series that I do that I've renamed Guide to Star Citizen Lore. Right there. You guys should be getting it right now. That link should give you, it's about 20 minutes. The first video covers the timeline, which is kind of a basic overview of the timeline of Star Citizen up to today in Star Citizen Universe time, I mean. And then the second one covers the locations and mission givers and kind of like the who's who of the Stanton system, which is the only system that's in game right now, but it's the main system that we play in. Less than 2 mil sounds like a good guess. Yeah. I mean, there might be more than 2 million Tavaran in the galaxy, but there's probably less than 2 million on Jalan, and there's probably less than 1 million outside of Jalan. not just in the UEE, but in outside of the UEE. Be right back, switching your laptop. All right. Are there slaves in the verse? Yes. The Banu, they don't really practice slavery as much as they practice forced indentured servitude. It's kind of a weird thing where you can get tricked or forced into slavery with the Banu, but the Banu, it's a contract system. So once you've paid off your debt or paid off what you were valued at, then you are free. Actually, indentured servitude is so written into the Banu culture that they actually sell their kids as slaves, which sounds horrible, but in reality, what it is once the kid is old enough to work, they sell them to what's called a evaluation suli, and that evaluation suli will then take those kids and say, what are you good at? It's essentially like an education. They sell them as slaves to schools, and then those schools figure out what those Banu are good at, and then sell them to sulis that need their help. So if you're really good at mechanical engineering, and they find like a ship manufacturing suli that you could go work for. But you don't have the choice. You just get sold to them based off of your skills. Now, once you have paid off your debt, or once you have paid off the debt that you incur for, evaluating and that kind of stuff, and pay off what you're worth, then you're free to go. But like every Banu is a slave when they reach maturity, and it takes a while for them to lose that. It's kind of like an apprenticeship, but it's a forced apprenticeship that you have no choice in, and you have no choice in leaving. You're not a property, though. It's not like chattel slavery, which is when you think of slavery, which is, West Africans being forced into slavery in the New World and Europe and such. That's called chattel slavery, which is where slaves are considered property. In the Star Citizen universe, you don't really have chattel slavery. You have more indentured servitude. Yeah. Yeah, it's very similar to the Roman slave system, which is similar to indentured servitude as well. It's more of a classical definition of a slave than a modern definition of a slave. Cool, man. I'm really into storyline lore. Thanks for the links. Subscribe and like. Thank you, man. But yeah, no, I do lore series on Star Citizen routinely. I'm not the only person who does lore in Star Citizen, but I like to think that I'm the only person who mainly does lore for Star Citizen content. I mean, I do stuff like this, like streams and such, but lore is my bag. It's what I do. I mean, Roman slavery isn't really slavery in the modern sense, and it's not really Roman in the sense that it's not uniquely Roman. Greeks did the same thing, Persians did the same thing, the Egyptians did the same thing. Same kind of idea. Just the best. Redhorn asks, what do you think is the relation between the Banu and the Vanduul is like? Flaky. Some Banu and Vanduul get along, so some Vanduul tribes will actually trade with the Banu, but every concept art piece which is done of Banu ships is them fighting Vanduul. The problem about the Banu is that they live next to Vanduul space. Most of their space borders Vanduul space, so they have frequent occurrences with the Vanduul. The Banu are very much front lines of the Vanduul wars. So they're very keenly aware of the difference between a Vanduul who they can trade with and a Vanduul they have to shoot first. Hey, Drew, thanks for that 3-month subscription with Prime, man. And Everyday Gamer Luna, thank you so much for that 2 months at tier 1. Gosh, you guys are all awesome. Let's do just a big old beers for you guys in Twitch chat, so you can have that stuff there. Do you know much about the first quantum drive ship background with the Aurora class ship? No, Terry, that's the jump ship, and it's the Aurora is the basis for it. Believe it's called the X7, and the X7 was an experimental ship, which was the ancestor to the modern day Aurora, and it was done by Nick Croshaw. The X7 was the very first ship to have a jump drive installed into it. Quantum drive is a little different. So Star Citizen travel is broken up into two different modes: quantum travel and jump travel. Quantum travel is what you use to get between ships or between planets, to get from planets to stations and so on and so forth. And then when you want to leave the system, you have to go to a jump point, and that jump point is a wormhole that you open and close using your jump drive. So you go through those wormholes. You have to navigate them through them, and then get out on the other side, and then you quantum out there. Now, all that jump drives are modified quantum drives. So most jump drives are just additions to quantum drives. So you take like a small device and put it on top of the quantum drive, and that's the jump drive that functions. Because what's his name? What Croshaw found out was that Nick Croshaw found out that the first jump point that was discovered in the Sol system was opened and closed because of because of similar malfunctions in quantum drives of ships that were flying through there, and they would disappear. It created this myth called the Neso Triangle, which was near Neptune's moon, or Saturn, one of the two, of Neso. And so he just studied all of the ships that went through, studied the region, and discovered that this malfunction in the quantum drive was causing a wormhole to open that was already there. So he just simply built an addition to the quantum drive that functioned to manually open and manually close those wormholes when he needed to. And he installed this modified drive onto the X7, which was a maneuverable light ship for a single person. At the time, most ships were multi-person large ships and required a lot of crew and were expensive to make. People could still purchase them, but think the space shuttle, in terms of size. So this was unique because it was a small ship that was designed for one person that wasn't huge, didn't require a huge amount of space. So, and that, doing the first jump came back, that design, it has eventually become the modern day Aurora. So. Gunpoint is the only FTL in Star Citizen currently. Indentured servitude is punishment for wrongdoing. Someone, instead of getting 3 hots and a cot in the victim's dime, the criminal is held responsible, works it off. Yeah, that's been used in the past, or something like that. You pop up live in my Discord now. Isn't that just neat? Oh, nice. Is there a planet that is similar to Earth that they found that doesn't need terraforming? Yeah, Kuna, that would be... God, what is it? Terra. There's several places that don't need terraforming. There's plenty of planets that needed light terraforming, just slight additions. A little bit more nitrogen, a little bit more oxygen, something like that. But Terra was essentially a super Earth that is better than Earth, but has all the same, which is naturally supporting human life. So. Astropub, any thoughts about cross-system communication works in Star Citizen due to lack of FTL communications other than jump point postal? Jump point postal is how it works. So you can use light speed transmissions from point to point for transmissions. But if you want to make any transmissions out of the system, you have to send it through essentially relays. So your message will get sent from a relay station to a relay station to a relay station, those comm arrays. And eventually it reaches a comm array at a jump point. And at that jump point, that comm array has a load of drones. And it loads the messages onto the drones, shoots the message drone through the jump point, and once that drone reaches the other side, it either transmits or docks with the comm array, gets the mission the messages uploaded to that comm array, and then continues the process until the messages reach their destination point. So it works like a robot version of the Pony Express. Wonderful Hope. Do we see such planets in the game? Thanks for the great videos and streams. Thank you, Akuma. Question. Do you know the history of the torpedo burrito? Not yet. Not yet. Keyword of that is yet. I will do a full history on the food of Star Citizen. They just yeet messages into space. Exactly. I also think Earth in 2900s is polluted. Terra is clean. To a degree, Earth is not necessarily polluted as much. It's more that it has the remnants of humanity. Humanity is kind of built everything on it. So there are places that are probably more pristine than others, but those are artificially pristine, whereas Terra is naturally, occurring. And even as Terra was built up over time, Terra still remains fairly pristine because of intentionally avoiding overpopulation and overbuilding. Also, Terra is like twice the size of Earth, so you could put the same population on Earth as on Terra, and they'd only take up half the space. I like to think of it as more like the difference between Europe and or Asia and like North or South America. Europe and Asia have 4,000 years of history built into it, and like things like cities and roads and so on and so forth. Even the oldest civilizations in North and South America is only about 3,000 years ago, and a lot of them were very primitive, and they didn't really build up a lot of infrastructure like you see in Europe or Asia. So there's just a lot more open space. And so, when you go to the United States or you go to Canada or Mexico, there's a distinct lack of stuff everywhere. Whereas when you're in Europe, you're constantly reminded that there are people around you because people have been living there for 4,000 years. Same in similar kind of places in Africa, especially Northern Africa. I think mid-Africa, like the mid-continent, probably be similar to that kind of thing. In lore, they used some limited terraforming to clean up some of the pollution. They did. Yeah, it's not... Earth isn't bad. It's just old. In the sense of, like, it's aging. It's past its prime. It's... I don't know how to put this in a more polite way. It's not really a good place to have a interstellar empire. There's only 2 jump points in and out. Both of those lead to civilizations or to areas which are themselves fairly well traveled, but also fairly well... They're not very well... there's not a lot of commerce coming out of them. Whereas, like, Terra is in a nexus of jump points. Those jump points are all very highly trafficked. They go to other areas which are highly important because of manufacturing or because of natural resources. The planet itself is huge. It has lots and lots of natural resources. It doesn't require any terraforming. A lot of the new infrastructure is built there, so it's not as decrepit as Earth, where you'd have to like replace all of the old infrastructure to build new stuff. Terra has it from the bottom up, that kind of thing. So it's a really difference between the obvious inference that CIG was trying to pull is Rome versus Byzantium versus Constantinople. Earth is Rome, Terra is Constantinople. Istanbul, Constantinople. New hotness. Old and busted, new hotness. Yeah. Hey, Pixel. What year is it in Star Citizen? So the year changes every IRL year. It's currently 2950 in Star Citizen universe. So Next year, 2021, will be 2951. It's experienced. Yeah. I mean, in lore, my own personal like character's backstory is just he was born and raised in Magnus. He currently lives in Stanton like everybody else, but just where he's from. Star Citizen is exactly 930 years in the future. Yeah. It's rode hard and put away wet. Yeah. How many different systems? I haven't decided that yet. Probably not. How many different systems do we have lore from? I want to say something like 90 or 100 different systems. There's a bunch of systems which are on the map, like on the star map, that don't exist in lore yet. They just have the names, but don't have any backgrounds. And some of those are very, very basic in terms of their descriptions. I'd like to say that probably every UEE system has some sort of lore guide to it. I like the fact that he skipped over their political stuff. I mean, we can talk about how you know, my disdain for centralists. Centralists? My apathy for the universalists and my appreciation for transitionalists, if we want. We can get into the Star Citizen politics discussion. Are there a few systems that are like classified? Not in the UEE. There's a couple of systems which are restricted, but that's because they're fair chance systems. Pull that up real quick and see what that is. Oh, Universe 1, 2, and 3 from Tim and Eric Awesome Show. Oh, sorry, that's fine. Listen, old and busted. There's nothing wrong with having appreciation for the finer things, for the older things. I just don't have an appreciation for old soul. More of a Terra guy. Oh, Pixel Pusher, was that a reference? The use up hoe bag that was from Tim and Eric? What is the geopolitical makeup of the game? I'm actually doing a video on that, but I'll go over a brief overview. Earth and humanity is kind of in a second age, maybe the third age of mankind is probably what it is. First age being the UNE and the UPE era. The second age being the Meso era. Third era being today. And might even be in the fourth or fifth age, I don't really know. And it's currently strong, probably one of the stronger military forces in there. It has a lot of soft power, with the Vanduul specifically, and the Tavaran being incorporated is starting to heat up. They're currently at war, official war with the Vanduul. So the Vanduul and humanity are officially at war. For about 200, or no, more like 400 years, the Vanduul and humanity have been exchanging in combat, but there's never been an official declaration of war. Most of the Vanduul would just raid, and then they'd have an invasion, and so on and so forth. The problem is the Vanduul don't have they don't have a political structure. They're nomadic tribes, spacefaring nomadic tribes that are isolated from each other. The biggest superpower that exists outside of humanity is the Xi'an. And they likely have higher technology and larger territory than the UAE does. And if they do, they are... how to put this? They are very clandestine. The Xi'an do not fight wars up front. They fight wars through politics and through subterfuge. Unless they absolutely have to fight up front wars. Like, they fight the Vanduul, but that's because the Vanduul don't... You can't really spy on the Vanduul. You know, you can't really convince the Vanduul to not attack you. You gotta punch them in the face. It's the only thing they understand. There is currently a trade agreement between humanity and the Xi'an called the Huxa, which allows for the Xi'an to have their companies come to human space and operate in human space, and human companies to operate in Xi'an space. There is some tension about that, though, and there is some rising tensions about aliens in the UAE in general. The more xenophobic political parties, like the centralists, are humans, you know, for humanity, you know, empire for humanity, humanity first kind of thing. And there are some people in the UAE who are more akin to trying to bring in, you know, other alien races directly into the empire to try to strengthen the empire. It's more like the transitionalists. And then there's the universalists, which are a little bit of both. They understand the need for a stronger military and for borders and such like that, but they also feel like they need to encourage freer trade. So opening up, you know, the equivalent of globalization, but with various different alien species to open up trade relations with them. Specifically the Xi'an, who humanity had a Cold War with for like 500 years up until this point. So the Xi'an and humans are still at a very uneasy peace. The humans are actively at war with the Vanduul. The Banu, the humans have had the best relationship with the Vanduul, or the Banu. They're the first species that humanity met, and the Banu are a decentralized unit. They're called the Banu sovereignty, I think is what they're called. But they're really more of a confederation of various groups that work together because they need to for common cause for outside forces. The Banu are very trade focused. As a result, they don't really have a military power, but they do have a lot of connections with. They even have trade agreements with the Vanduul. And then, of course, the Devarin are somewhere in the middle. They're part of the UAE, but not all of them are in the UAE. So there's a movement for the Devarin to incorporate themselves into the UAE, and there's also a movement to kind of recapture their old identity after humanity conquered their home world. And then somewhere deep off into deep space where humans have never been before are the Kurthak, who have technically still been fighting what are called the Spirit Wars with the Xi'an. There's currently a treaty or a truce that's been signed between the two, but it's still there. Brand new Protectorate, thank you. It's the Tevarin sovereignty, I believe. Hey, Sykes Styles, how you doing? They're like the Romulans when fighting wars. Yes. It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Yes, exactly. But, yeah, but humans have pure stubbornness and rage. Please do. I'm hoping they'll do a deep dive in this, but there hasn't been much in the site. Geopolitical stuff? Yeah, I'm doing one on that. It's actually part of that guide to lore, is just kind of talking about the major political figures. Oh no, it was the Star Citizen universe was giving me Tim and Eric vibes from the sketch. Yeah. The universe is huge. If you were to take the universe and place it in a tube, it would end up being a very long tube, and you wouldn't want to put it in a tube. Which alien race lives a long time again? The Xi'an. They're the longest lived. As far as we know, the longest lived Xi'an, according to lore currently, I think is 500 years. It might be longer. Isn't there a civil war on human system somewhere? Yes, the Chiron system, the Chiron system. Chiron 2, I believe. There's 2 nations on the planet that are going to war. There are still nations that exist, nation states. Like on Earth, America is still a thing. It's just that each of those nations functions kind of more like an American state does. So they have individual representation. And then the planets themselves will have representation in the government as well. It's messy as hell right now. I think Earth has 5 representatives in the Senate, but that doesn't represent all the 5 nation states. There's not only 5 nation states in Star Citizen, as far as I know. Smell like money, yeah. What do you think the backstory is behind the workshop in the Banu Defender trailer? It's probably just a Banu workshop, because it has different pieces from different technologies from all over the universe that they're using to build Banu Defenders. In Star Citizen, about 2 hours. Okay, cool. Be right back. What's the lifespan of a human? Yeah. Sorry, wanted to do a quick bio real quick. Bang, 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 Banu, 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 yeah. What's the lifespan of a human? Kickmeyer, in terms of Star Citizen based? It is... about 150, 180 years. I think the oldest human is somewhere between 150 and 200 years old in Star Citizen. I remember only the 300 having capable jump drive was like the 315. Do you think that's changed? Oh, sorry, Calvin, I didn't see that. But yes. Oh, and McGreasy, thank you so much for that subscription. So many people subscribing. Thank you, guys. Space Elves, yeah. All of the 300s are capable of putting a jump drive in. The 315 is the only one that comes with a jump drive. Can you gain reputation with trading with alien races or alien corporations? Yes. Where do you go? Where do you get the lore from Star Citizen? Love lore. Well, the first place I usually go to is starcitizen.tools, which is one of the Star Citizen wikis, because they usually have good references. If they have good references, they'll link them in their sources, and those sources are usually from the website. Most of the lore is on the website. Some of it is on their YouTube, but almost everything can be found on the website. They do write-ups of individual days, individual companies, individual systems, moments in history, entire timelines. There's a lot of detail in the lore that they have right now. Anyone knows how to enter the contest for the Prowler? Let me give you guys a link to it. Hold on. Right here. Hey, Toggle, how you doing? There you go there, Star Citizen Bug Reports. That'll work, yeah. If you want to do lore builder, you can also look up Galactic Historian, which is all my lore. That gives you some ideas for videos if you want to kind of watch through that. But if you're looking to read it yourself, yeah, lore builders are pretty good. Yo, anyone know how to fix spawning naked without a Moby? I think that's a reset. But I'd go to the, that one I've been told did not reset because it might break your entire account. I'd go to the help desk and see if on Spectrum and see if there's a way for a workaround for it. It's supposed to be between 120 and 160 years for first, yeah. Any information on the Pioneer and Outposts yet? No, not as of recently. So Dublin, before you get too disappointed, this is not the depth of lore that 40K has. And in some cases, I'd say that Star Citizen's lore is a direct response to 40K lore, in terms of how they handle with some things. Star Citizen is not Grimdark Future. It is more Game of Thrones than it is Grimdark. It's more Expanse inspired than, 40K inspired. Yep, there is a full writer's guide to the lore, which I believe was 9 parts. Yeah, I don't know when that hotfix is coming out, though. I hope soon. The question is, will Star Citizen actually become a real fully fledged game that is the representative of hundreds of millions of dollars? Probably at some point. Depends on what you define by full-fledged game. Star Citizen will reach a 1.0 status. It may not have everything that originally was planned in the 1.0 status, but it will reach a 1.0 status. They're testing 9.0S at the moment on the PTU. Those issues are in mind. Okay. Yeah, I can pull it up. Here's Writer's Guide 13 that has all the other ones linked to it too. Yeah. Boop. There you go. There's the Writer's Guide. That's the last Writer's Guide. But it has all of the other ones after that. The Hull C cargo hauler is finished via Squadron 42 roadmap. Will they put it into PTU soon? Probably at some point. It may be that they're waiting for the physics rework from things like because like in Squadron 42, the Hull C doesn't have to unload its cargo. It just has to be a ship. So they're probably waiting for the physics rework that has to deal with like the docking, which is coming in 3.11. So. The only issue I had with the current PTU was the wins at Lorville. Other than that, it's pretty smooth. Nice, good. I lost all my money again. I got greedy with the cargo. It happens all the time, Dublin man. It happens all the time. Lovely. Now so many orgs and creative players. What to do extent to with Navi. Now with so many orgs and creative players, to what extent do you think CIG will be open to incorporate fan-written lore? Probably not fan-written, but definitely fan-created in-game. So, like, events that happen in-game ending up in lore will probably happen if it's big enough or interesting enough. Case in point, the Jumptown Wars. The Jumptown Wars is an official part of lore. It was made official part of lore from one lore post that they posted. which is it's an elegant way that they did it. They mentioned it, that it existed, that there's a large conflict around it, and it ties into the overall story that's going on in Stanton, which is that the companies that control Stanton are not holding up their end of the bargain to keep Stanton safe like they're supposed to. So that's a huge deal, and it fed right into that lore point. So they mentioned Jumptown by name, and that Jumptown is the site of much chaos in the game, which means that all of the events that players did in Jumptown is in lore. In theory. But they don't have to canonize every single thing you did in lore in Jumptown just to know that overall the Jumptown Wars were a thing. It's an elegant way of adding to the lore. It's super easy and smooth. With the languages that they're developing for the races, have they given any indication as far how might be spoken, or are they too alien for human tongues? They do. There are 2 language guides currently out for the Xi'an and for the Banu. Those 2 language guides are spoken. They have phonetic and like kind of pronunciation guides as well. There's at least one person who is trying to take it upon themselves to become a expert Banu speaker, and they are working on it. It's a like anything, they're working on how the language works. They already have in a sense, Operation Pitchfork as well. What do you know of Fleet Week? What can we expect? What have you heard of the Odin? Have you heard of the Odin rumors? So I have heard of the Odin rumors. Odin is probably in the builds, just like the F8 Lightning is. It's just that those people forget that the builds that come out of Star Citizen are game dev builds often, and they often have other leftover things from things like Squadron 42, because it seems like they have main game dev branch, which is both Star Citizen and Squadron 42 based, and then they branch those off when they do release for Star Citizen, but they keep developing in the same branch because they're essentially the same game, but with different branches. So a lot of that stuff is left in there. And how I know that's the case is because they have leaked the entire audio logs of Squadron 42 in the past. I've heard lots and lots of in-game audio from Squadron 42 from a leak that was accidentally published in one of the PTU builds back in the day. So they do definitely put Squadron 42 assets in Star Citizen an accident. So Odin might even be referenced in game like text files, but isn't actually there yet. What do I know of Fleet Week? It's the week that all UEE service personnel swear their allegiance to. I think they officially graduate from training and into their first assignments. I believe they said it's between Emancipation Day and Armistice Day. So I'm guessing that's Emancipation Day is the day that the Mezzers fell, and the Armistice Day would be the day of either the end of the first or the second Tavaran War. Probably the first Tavaran War, which is a big deal for most people in the UE. So we don't know exactly when those are, but I'm guessing it's between the 16th and the 25th or 23rd, which is in IRL is Armed Services Day versus it's all the way up to Memorial Day. Help desk is telling me to reset. Okay, Sally. Do you think we'll get the Air and Halo at the same time we get Crusader and Orison? I mean, the Air and Halo already exists, Jay Calvin. It's in game. Do you mean the Air and Halo stations? Maybe. Any recent information about getting the Reclaimer fully operational? IG packet beams or robotic arms? I don't know if the robotic arms will ever function, but probably not until salvage. They really need to get salvage done before any of that kind of works. JT safe, yeah, exactly. Benny's is a reaction to the communities moving a vending machine. Well, Benny's existed before. The vending machine was the Benny's machine, but they fleshed out the Benny's lore because of that. Do other of the named places like or orphanage and such have lore too? All of the named drug labs are controlled by a syndicate, which is has connections to Wallace Klim, Eddie Parr, and one other individual who's not yet been put in game yet. Those three work together to form a drug syndicate that smuggles all over the Stanton system. So Jumptown, Orphanage, Paradise Cove, these are all owned by that syndicate, which is currently in a war with the Ortoni Syndicate, which is kind of like the Bloods going up against, the Yakuza. It's like, yeah, you might be tough, but you're going up against an international gang of thugs who are really, really good at their job. And right now, the Ortoni are beating the shit out of them. And we know this because all of the missions you get from Tisa Pacheco are Ortoni missions. He's the head, or possibly the head, of the Ortoni Syndicate in Stanton. What is Free Fly Day? So Free Fly it's on a day, it's going to be a week. Usually it's a weekend, but it's where anybody who has an account, a Star Citizen account, can download the game and try it for free. I think you have to put in a code at one of the sites or something like that. What I like is you can create your own lore in-game via writing your own story. Stardate, Captain's Log. Yeah, that's pretty much, you could do that. And those things might, and the way they'll do, add lore in, is that if you participate in something big, that big thing will be part of the lore. And so technically your experience is part of the lore, but they're not going to canonize your logs. But you can still say, I wrote these logs from my time at the Battle of, the Binary Stars, or whatever. Discovery reference. Ooh, I hit the microphone. Writing for Tavaran language. They don't have Tavaran language yet. They may have been lost, in fact. What about drone play? Any recent information? Nothing yet. Nothing on drones. Mike Shaw. Thank you, Roman. Shaw was the other one. They don't have an official name that I could find, so I've been calling the Klim Shah Par Syndicate, because those are the three major players that we know of. Just jumping in. Hi there, Mr. Paul. Are there any lawful mission givers? Just not illegal mission givers. Right now in game, yeah. Gosh, I'm blanking on her name. I know it. She has the robotic leg. She's not unlawful. She's just also not illegal. She runs core samples all over the place. And Constantine Hurston. Constantine Hurston is not an illegal mission giver either. He works for Hurston, which is the official controller of Hurston. So, Recco Battaglia. Yep, and Recco. So Hurston and Battaglia. And then there's two that we're planning on coming on board with a Crusader, which are Crusader security members. Ruto is illegal. Ruto is a mission giver who works with the Dusters. We know who specifically works with the Dusters, probably works with the Ninetails as well, and does their dirty work. Essentially, he's a contract for gangs. Hires you to do work for them. Recco Battaglia, yeah. I was just more attention to the Sidnus mining ship, the one that looks like a giant tick. Yeah, that was just an idea they were playing with early on in development. It's cool it's in there. I believe Recco will be taken out, Ronan. I think Recco will be removed from the game once they move Levski, because Recco is a Levski mission giver. She's not a Stanton mission giver. She's one of the only ones that is a Stanton mission isn't a Stanton mission giver that's in the game. But we are going to get two mission givers from Crusader Security once Levski's removed. Miles Eckhart does do not illegal missions, I guess to say, because Miles Eckhart treads that gray line. Some of his missions are totally legit and above board, but some of his missions are not really sanctioned legal stuff. He asks you to kill a lot of people, which may or may not be wanted. Does she have a prosthetic arm? I know she has a prosthetic leg, but... So back when Nix comes in, basically running. Azra, have you ever added the lore that Star Citizen... Have you added lore that Star Citizen has incorporated into its lore? Have I added to it? I mean, I was part of the Jumptown Wars. That's about it, though. None of my personal actions have made it into lore, no. How is exploration going to work? Am I going to be able to name my own planets? Yes. If you find a jump point, you'll be able to name the jump point and then name the planets. But you have to be the first person to register that finding of the jump point and those planets with a UEE in order to name them. So finding it is the easy part. Then you got to beat everybody else who may find it to a UEE registration office to register the name. That's one of the ways that you can do individually affect the lore, because if you find a jump point that isn't undiscovered, then you get to name it. Most of exploration is going to be things like mapping regions of space which have been unmapped or undermapped for a long period of time, and maybe finding some things like comets or wrecks or other celestial objects that might exist in those regions. Mapping planets, regions of planets which haven't been mapped in a while, and finding the same thing, caves, finding relics, that kind of thing. Most of exploration is not going to be stimulating. Most of exploration is scanning and analyzing what you find, and then reporting back to where you got the mission from, or doing it on your own and then taking that information and selling it to somebody else. Yeah, the Jumptown Wars lasted a good 6 to 9 months. I'm still working on part 2 of the Jumptown Wars documentary I've been making. But yeah, they lasted officially from November to March. November 2019 to March 2020. November 2018 to March 2019. Yeah, they're pretty intense. She take core samples herself, but she got an arrow to the knee. Literally. Would the Kraken, Vanduul Merchantman, or Endeavor be a better bar ship than the 890 Jump? Probably the Vanduul Merchantman. But likely the Vanduul Merchantman would be inferior to, say, something like the Kraken Pioneer. Yeah. So is there going to be a whole galaxy to explore? Like, is there other procedural generated games? No, Solotherm. The game is going to be restricted to about 100 planets was the original idea at launch. It's probably going to be less than that. And they'll add new systems as they go along that you can discover, but you're not going to see a Elite Dangerous level of stuff. They're not going to that kind of procedurally generated. Likely they'll have only a handful because they don't want to spread it out too much. Even with new systems, they don't want to spread them out too much. So. Personal opinion is that the smaller systems, that for smaller systems, CIG just complete the whole system before release. That's the plan, Ronan. I think likely Pyro is going to be finished and complete before it's released. The only reason why Stanton has taken so long is because they were developing art assets and they were developing backend and doing a bunch of other stuff while they were making the game. Pyro will probably be a once and done because it's only got Ruin Station. And most planets. Most systems only have one inhabitable planet and one landing zone. And those systems that have multiples usually have like 2 landing zones and 2 inhabited planets. Like Centauri has Saisei and Yar are the 2 major planets with landing zones. But Yar is like a ghost town kind of. It's an old mining, gold mining kind of thing. Like very like Southwest ghost town kind of situation, whereas Yar is more of or Saisei is more of a modern day Tokyo. But there's only 2 landing zones. There are 2 landing zones on those 2 planets in that entire system. Yeah, Stanton, Terra, and Sol. Likely Terra and Sol would probably be a drop, but as a result, they're probably going to be some of the last systems we get. Terra will probably come in before anything else. Where's Levski going? Levski's going to Nyx, because Levski is on Delamar, and Delamar is an asteroid in the Nyx system, which is connected to Pyro. Delamar is part of Nyx, yeah. Setting your own jump coordinates must be essential for exploring outskirts of the system. That doesn't have any nearby space lanes. Exploring space between systems would be nice, but if you're likely to come about. Yeah, you're not going to see space between star systems, but you will see unexplored space inside systems. Did I say planets? 100 systems, yeah. Each of those systems may have one. Some have 0 planets. Some of them have no suns, the stars. One of them has no stars, I should say. But most of them have at least multiple planets in their system, which means that they have, if every system had two planets, and there was 100 systems, then it means there's 200 planets. So. My guess is Pyro, Nyx, Magnus, Odin, then Nose to the Grindstone for Terra. I feel like Terra is going to be their beta release. When they release Terra, they'll be in full beta of Star Citizen. Which is, at that point, you should have Magnus, you should have Odin, you should have Nyx, you should have Pyro, you should have Stanton. So Terra's logical. It's on that route. And they may actually make something like Lear. Maybe one of those systems, because they like to go back. They keep dipping back to Lear a lot. Nexus might make it in too. Nexus is connected to the Magnus. So, well, no, it's not. There's a system between those, but. I don't know if it has 6 moons. I'd have to double check that. I could see Hadrian coming in before Hadrian and Nexus coming in before Terra, just because once you get Magnus in, it's not that hard, and Nexus is essentially Pyro. Yeah. There's one system that's just a single rogue planet with no star. Yeah. There's one system with a black hole that's primary body. I don't remember what if it has a planet. It has one gas giant in it. That's called the Tamsa system. Pyro 3 has 6 moons alone? Jesus. When I looked at the Pyro system last, I didn't see any celestial bodies around it, but I'll double check. Was this on the star map, though? Because that might be right. If it's on the star map, it might be right. Because I saw it, I was looking at it through like the lore guides and stuff like that. Let's look it up. Pyro. Now, I do know that Pyro 3 and Pyro 4 are basically orbiting each other. Pyro 3 and Pyro 4 are both going to crash into each other. So in reality, you have Pyro 1, Pyro 2, Pyro 3 and 4, and then Pyro 5 and Pyro 6. It has 6 moons. Jesus Christ. But one of those moons, it really has 7 moons because it also has Pyro 4 around it. Oh, Ruin Station's around Pyro 3. I thought it was around Pyro 4. It's around Pyro 6. Why is it saying that it's around? Ruin Station isn't around it. No. Adir is Pyro 5. Pharaoh is Pyro 5. Ignis is Pyro 5. So Pyro 5 is the one that has all of the moons. And Pyro 2 and 3 and 4 are basically the same. Pyro 3 is a lava planet, which is pretty cool. And then Ruin Station is around Pyro 6, which is the outermost planet in this Pyro system. Lore channel? Yes, Own the Weeb. Exclamation point GH in chat if you guys want to get a little look at that. We don't just do lore. Lore is the main focus of our YouTube, but yeah, we do gameplay and stuff like that as well. But it's my main focus outside of streaming, and so I do one day a week where we just kind of talk about lore and the game a little bit. Kind of, that's why I call it office hours. It's kind of like a Cool little thing. Binary planet, well, kind of, but Pyro 3 knocked Pyro 4 out of its orbit, and now Pyro 4 is orbiting Pyro 3, and I believe Pyro 4 is going to crash into Pyro 3. So it's an interesting system. You really have two planets at the center, at the you know, Pyro 1 and Pyro 2, and then Pyro 3 and 4 are a binary planet system. Then Pyro 5 has a bunch of moons around it, but it's kind of further out, and Pyro 6 was attempted to be terraformed, but they just gave up, and it has Ruin Station around it. But all of them are lifeless rocks. The only planet that probably would have outposts would probably be Pyro 6. All the rest of them, no chance in hell. Maybe like a research base, but... Hey, Timble. How will we run out of fuel if... not run out of fuel if the systems are so big? You will run out of fuel. Well, Ruin Station is the bespoke station. Hey, Christos. Hey, Timbo, what's going on, man? There's no stops, yeah. You're just screwed. You need to have enough fuel to get there, which means that you won't be able to fly there in fighter ships. Now, in reality, they probably will have one or two service stops in Pyro, like stations, but they're probably more like the small stations we used to have than the new larger stations, which will work as service stops. Hopefully they also have fuel, like fuel refueling kind of thing. Oh, spiders looking really cool, yeah. When will Crusader be finished? End of the year is the plan. And will it be a big ball of volumetric crowds and weather technology added? Yes, that's the idea. That's the plan, at least. Most of Crusader will be inaccessible, except for why am I blanking the name? I always blank on this name. It's Landing Zone. It's on the tip of my tongue and it just escaped my brain. And then that's where the space whales will live, is in Crusader, into the atmosphere. The R&R stations. Yeah, well, I think currently the stations we have are R&R stations. Like, they're smaller R&R stations. Yeah, I'll probably have pirate runs, fuel stops. Orison, thank you. Orison was 2/3 complete when they took it off, right? Yeah, it was close to being done. It sounded like Crusader was more the issue than Orison, and it also sounded like they just didn't have enough hands to do that and to work on the Grimhex reworks. Hire an escort wing, sell whatever ever needed fuel, make bank, return to Stanton, rest and repeat. Exactly. Bespin? No, not Bespin. Cloud City. There are systems that are 60 times bigger than Stanton. Oh yeah, Stanton's actually kind of small. I think it's only like 5 AU across. 3 AU, something like that. I believe Pyro is 12 AU. It's huge. It's like double the size of Stanton. But luckily, the jump point that comes from Crusader to from Crusader to Pyro 6, I believe, is close to Pyro. Yeah, it's from Stanton to Pyro is Pyro 6. It goes to Pyro 6. Medium bidirectional. That is SC scaled AU, yes. I bet good money that Star Citizen will eventually have an equivalent, if not an official branch of the fuel routes from ED. For sure. It depends on how they make it work, though, because we had a discussion a while back, which is that Starfarers will not be able to sell you quantum fuel. The way you get quantum fuel is through refining quantanium. So you may not be able to get quantum fuel from Starfarers. but from refinery ships. 1/10, I think, yeah. It depends. It actually depends. I think it's planets are 1/8 the scale and moons are 1/10 the scale. They change the scale based off of the planetary bodies. Do you think we'll still get Pyro in 2020? I think, yeah, we'll see. I think it's still likely we'll see it at the end of 2020. At the very least, we'll probably have all of Stanton at the end of 2020. Yeah, Vulcan is the big thing. 1/10 to 1/6, yeah. It's a variable scaling. Moons are bigger in terms of scale. Their scale is larger than planets. But like, for instance, all of the planets except for Crusader of the Stanton system are super Earths. So they're at least twice the size of Earth. But in practice, the surface area is like that of Russia, which is still huge in terms of game terms, but in scaling terms, that's not that big. AU is 1/10. Okay. Would you venture into guessing and sharing your view whether the CIG might have plans for future tech allowing for man-made jump lanes? Probably not. Though I'm sure they'll plan on warp drive of some kind, similar to kind of jump points, because they've hinted at the idea that there's some crazy madman who's been trying to do faster than light travel without jump points and has failed every time. There could be a situation where an update further down the line has two methods of travel, a FTL drive and a jump drive, which might only be able to be installed on larger ships, or might replace your quantum drive entirely, which means you have to get a separate fuel drive. I don't know. This is just me spitballing. Because in lore, it has been practiced, even though the guy's nuts. Does this mean we're getting refueling ships that work soon? Probably not soon, but maybe by sometime next year. Do you think they'll add fuel theft? Maybe a pirate crew on a Starfarer? Probably. So what's the point of a Starfarer if it won't refuel? It refuels hydrogen fuel, which is your maneuvering fuel. That's what the point is. It originally was supposed to do both, but then CIG changed how quantum works. So 1/4 the time it fails, yeah. Stealing fuel from the Starfire. That makes sense. Zeus and Oxia, thanks for that subscription for 9 months. So much, man. And then Own the Weeb, thank you so much. On the web, thank you so much, Weeb, for that follow. I come end you, and BlizzWiz, Frivolous, Philo, all you guys, thank you so much. 80% of the works, it works all the time. 80% of the time, works all the time. All right, guys, we're going to end this broadcast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us here on Twitch and YouTube. It means a lot to me that you guys came in and hang out and talked. We do this every week on Tuesdays. Going forward, the plan is for me to do this on Tuesdays, release a video on Thursdays, Thursdays or Fridays, and then Captain's Table comes out on YouTube on Sundays. So we have at least like 3 videos a week that are popping up on YouTube. One's more of a relaxed live stream, one's our podcast content, and then another one's going to be a pre-made video. Especially going into the summer, I'm going to try to hit it as hard as I can. Some of those videos may be shorter than 10 minutes, and some of them may be a little bit longer. My goal is to do 1 video a week, a month, at least 1 mainline Galactic Historian video, and then 3 kind of smaller videos that may be lore-based or may kind of be just game discussion-based. So, thank you guys again for hanging out with us. Love your faces. Let's go. Remember, wait, Prowler, exclamation point Prowler in chat for you guys on Twitch. I'm going to... Yep. There you go. Go enter that giveaway. That ends tonight. That ends in like an hour. So get in on that. And then we're still giving away a Cutlass Blue. If you guys hit !May in chat, that'll give you guys the Cutlass Blue link. Make sure you guys are entering to that as well. So do that. All you got to be doing is following the channel on Twitch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Both are absolutely free. Go ahead and do that. Get it on. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be doing not our Zero to Hero. We'll be doing our Astropub Origins, where I try to make money to get a bar. Eventually do some roleplay out of it. Love you guys. See you guys tomorrow.